Well, hey there. How you doing, folks? I am Greg Smithwick. I am the host of So Local Live here on the So Local Live network. It's ironic that this is where the show ended up. It's not really. Anyway, welcome to the August 8th edition of the So Local Live network show. As I said, I am Greg. Sam will be along shortly. He's got a very fastidious health and beauty regime before he appears on live camera. So I'm sure he is quaffing and doing other things to make sure he is beautiful for you when he arrives. As we get started today, first, before we get to the meat of the show, which I've excited some people about, not in a good way, let me first say a big thank you to our friend Kelly Smith, Realtor. Share screen. There we go. Kelly is a pretty amazing human being. She's run for office a few times here in Pasco County. She has always been involved in politics here. She is now in the real estate game and doing swimmingly at it. And if you would like to enlist her services, you can give her a call at 813-716-85. I'm sorry, 8454. This is live. 813-716-8454. Kelly at Kelly Smith, Florida, FLRealtor.com. You can look her up on the TikTok machine as well. She makes videos quite commonly of her of the houses she has for sale and for rent. So we want to thank we want to thank her for her sponsorship. She is one of the sponsors of our show. We also want to say a quick thank you to our Patreon members. You can go to Patreon, look for So Local Live. And there is a link on the So Local page here on Facebook. You can go and become a Patreon subscribing member. What extra benefits do you get? None just yet. But what you're doing is essentially, I want you to think about the show as a hybrid between like public broadcasting and a commercial. We're reaching about 3,000 people a month. We have 2,700 followers and several hundred views on the videos that we do. I'm posting a lot of other memes and information on the page on a fairly regular basis, and we would love to have your support in that way. That helps us keep the internet flowing through the series of tubes. So thank you to our friend Rachel Marie, who is our probably our sole viewer in South Dakota at this point. Cesar Garcia, he was on the show a few weeks ago. You may remember he's a young progressive activist from Sarasota, Bradenton area, south of the Bay Area. Maria Mandry, that's not someone that's known to me. So Maria, thank you for very much out of the blue subscribing to our show. We appreciate your support. Jennifer Eichenberger, who we do know and love. She's local here in Newport Richey. Daniel Antonino and Fred Eater. Those are our Patreon subscribers. It's $10 a month is the minimum that we set. We will probably roll out some individualized content for people who are Patreon subscribers as we go. So thank you all for your generous support. It's keeping us on the air. And that's what we want to do. So hello, everybody. Hello, Virginia Rippert. Nice to see you actually in here on the moment. Lori Bersani and Jareen Elkins from way out in the Midwest somewhere. Oklahoma? I think Oklahoma. I think that's right. Jareen, nice to see you along with us today. We are going to be, yeah, Lori, he popped up and now he's gone. I don't know what happened there. I'm sure we'll get him back in a minute or two. We are going to talk about some progressive things. This is your progressive gaslight shelter show. This is where when you found, Oklahoma, when you think you are crazy, when you think you are too upset about things, shit's on fire, and we are the place where you can come to talk about that, listen to that. We would love to have your questions in the comments or your participation. If any of you ever want to jump on and talk to us live on the stream, it's very easy for us to do that. All you need is an internet connection and a phone or a laptop. So don't be afraid of jumping on board and joining us. There he is. Man, you look fantastic.
Thank you. I literally just got out of the shower. I came
home,
I was sweaty and disgusting doing voter registration, man. In this Florida heat, it's hot, it's demanding, but we got to do it.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going, buddy. It's going. Lots to talk about today.
Yeah, we sure do. Now, before we get to, I sent a number of people a Facebook message about what's been happening with the Newport Richey Police Department. And I this is what I know will happen. I don't go down to Newport Richey and hang out anymore downtown. I am absolutely sure if I were to do so, I would get a ration of shit from a lot of people who like the way things are going in the city of Newport Richey. They will tell me that look at the business development downtown, look at all the housing that's going up, look at all the progress we've made, and that's fine. I get that, but I remember specifically telling those people in that circle 6 years ago now, when they went after, there's a little convenience store on Main Street right across from the New Port Richey Library, and it is run by a group of South Asian business owners. I'm not going to guess where they're from. It could be Indonesia, it could be Pakistan, it could be India. I don't know. I do know that the owners are Muslim because we had a conversation specifically about what to say to people at Christmas time, because I don't know what to say to Muslims. And one of them told me, his name was, he said, say Merry Christmas because, Jesus was a prophet of Allah. So that's okay. And I didn't know. That's how little I knew about their faith. Anyway, my point is they tried to shut them down. They arrested them. They confiscated a bunch of stuff they said was illegal. Turns out that was not true. And what was happening was they were trying to run that store out of business because it gathered a bunch of homeless people and other miscreants in the parking lot late at night. And frankly, in the year that happened, I remember looking this up and finding out that there were 35 or 40 calls a month about the bars at the corner of Main Street and Grand Boulevard, where fights were happening, where people were being attacked, where people were being mugged, and there were not many crime reports of the mini mart store. So the problem wasn't the miscreants hanging out there; it was that it really didn't look good. And they were trying to run them out of business. And I remember telling people in the city of New Port Richey, if you run out of town, the place where the poor people who work in your bars and restaurants, if I need a gallon of milk, I can walk to that little store, or I can walk a mile to the Winn-Dixie at Congress and Massachusetts, or I can walk all the way to the Publix at Southgate. At that point, those were the only options for somebody to buy a loaf of bread or a can of cat food on Sunday morning or a roll of toilet paper. That was it. And if you price the people that shop there out of your town, what you will end up with is a sanitized version of your town that nobody who works there can afford to live in. And here we are now. Now, I didn't want to talk about New Port Richey having a police Nazism problem. It's not something I set out to do. I've met and I like the police chief. He was homeless himself as a teenager. The New Port Richey police have done more than other local police jurisdictions. That doesn't make them saints. To provide blankets and jackets and things for the homeless population. That's the public face that's been happening. And I haven't wanted to delve into this, but from the summer of the George Floyd protests, and actually before that by a little bit, related to Pride, right after Pride, we asked the city of, the Pride board all went to a city council meeting and asked them to unroll a human rights ordinance that included that it was not okay for landlords to discriminate against LGBTQA community members. And they refused to do so. They said, that's not a problem that we have here. Well, in the George Floyd summer, I want to remind people that Rob Marlowe, who I think is not running for re-election, so he's sort of the lame duck outgoing mayor of New Port Richey, he took sides in the George Floyd protests. And it was not the side of the people who were protesting. It was the side of the Proud Boys who were violently attacking and harassing and threatening the people who were protesting. That's the side the mayor, a Democrat, took.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go here with this. I've always supported Rob Marlowe as mayor of New Port Richey. I've had him on my show, but it became clear to me in the aftermath of that the New Port Richey Police Department was looking for trouble. We had confirmed reports. We have, journalistically verified reports that during that time, there's video. I've posted the video before of the New Port Richey police having a prayer meeting with Proud Boys, some of whom were at the January 6th insurrection in Washington, D.C. That's a fact. There was also an officer who was disciplined for having sent and received Nazi jokes of some kind, memes, including the Nazi emblems. That happened. Yeah. These are things that happen. And in the moment, what we thought about was, well, maybe the truth is the police chief had been very sick. Maybe he just kind of let the department get out ahead of him. And other people were willing to take the New Port Richey police and the city of New Port Richey to task on this. And I've been sort of laying back on it. And the question I asked on my page and on the So Local page about an hour ago was how many Nazi jokes or memes per decade are acceptable for your local police department? In your opinion, Sam, how many Nazi jokes per decade? Right. The right number is 0. The right number is
Zero.
no
It's always
Nazi
0.
jokes. Please,
Yeah.
no Nazi emblems or jokes. I suspect there's a reason why there's not a calendar of police officers taking off their shirts like there is for firefighters. It's because they don't want anybody to see the SS tattoos on their bodies. This is a real problem. And I never would have thought that New Port Richey was going to be the police jurisdiction in my county where this became a problem. But today, we now have new evidence from Creative Loafing and their excellent recording of New Port Richey police officers making Anne Frank jokes. So the first thing that I'm put in the comments here is a link to a YouTube video. This is by a civil rights lawyer who has taken the case of a woman in the city of New Port Richey. There was a warrant, and it wasn't a search warrant. It was basically an inspection warrant, which means that the building department, the code enforcement department in the city, got a court order to get permission to go into the house because she wouldn't let them in. Right. The whole thing is laid out in the video, in the Creative Loafing story. But I'm posting a link to the civil rights lawyer's video because what you're going to see is at least 8 cops inside this woman's house, going through things that are not, not their business. They went through her refrigerator. They opened bags that had jewelry in them. And we find out today that not only did that invasive overreach happen, which this lawyer thinks is a violation of her civil rights, and I guarantee there's going to be a lawsuit about this, that they also made Anne Frank jokes while they were in the house. They made jokes. There's a wall that appears to be newly constructed. That's their take on it. It's like Anne Frank. And he whispered it. The cop whispered it because he fucking knew that was not okay. And the other cop laughed at it, and he repeated it. They're making Anne Frank jokes about violating someone's civil rights in the city of New Port Richey. The police department, a sergeant in the police department is laughing at those jokes. Now, I'm not a sergeant. I'm not a...
The follow-up to the joke was that they need to look up in the attic and they knock through the wall, make sure there's nothing in there to find, which, again,
right.
The Holocaust.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. I'm not an NCO. I was never a sergeant. I've not often been trusted to be in charge of groups of other people. But if a cop made that joke and I was the sergeant, I would have disciplined that person on the spot because I would know that my police department has an issue. Because less than 2 years ago, one of my officers got in trouble for Nazi emblems on their Facebook page. Yep. It's not the first jurisdiction in West Pasco County to have this problem. Port Richey went through this 4 or 5 years ago. And I always thought, well, Port Richey's going to Port Richey. Port Richey's the dumb little city that couldn't. And New Port Richey is their more mature older brother. And I have to back up through all of that now and say, New Port Richey, you have a fascistic police department problem now. You have harassed peaceful protesters. You have falsely arrested and fined peaceful protesters. You have protected and guided those who abused them physically and, in the streets. You have a problem. So why isn't it getting fixed? The mayor's a lame duck. He's out of the picture. The city manager, however, continues to be the city manager. And that's happening because the business owners on Main Street and Grand Boulevard, they love the way the city's going. They love it. They love what's happening in the city. And it looks really good. I'm not going to, mince words about that. I've been going to downtown New Port Richey since Czechs Watch 1974. I've marched in 5 or 6 Chasco Fiesta parades. I'm an old timer. Right. I remember when the Hacienda was a boarding house and some of my high school, hoodlum rock and roll friends lived there. That's how long I've been going to downtown to New Port Richey. And I've been really happy to see some of the business development things that have happened in the last 5 or 6 years. But are we saying that in order for that to happen, we have to abuse citizens of the city? We have to literally go to city council meetings and say the homeless are like rats, and if you feed them, they'll keep coming back? Is that what it requires to have a cool little city to live in? I don't think it is. And I don't think it does require that. And I'm really, as you can probably tell, a little pissed off about this. I don't know what else to say. I thank Creative Loafing for taking, the initiative to cover things in our little city because they don't have to.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you got?
I mean, well, let's say who it is. It's Justin Garcia. It's, Creative Loafing, great outlet, and I love them, but it's Justin Garcia who is truly doing the work time and time again. Pretty much any time that we're reading one of his stories or one of their stories, it's usually him. It's almost always him. And he has more coming. That's all he said to me. There's more coming because, this is what's floating to the surface. What's deeper? We look deeper. What are we going to find? And I am horrified to even think of it.
We didn't have a chance to talk before the show. Do you think we should show the video? Because we can.
Yeah,
I don't suppose Creative Loafing would have a problem with that because we're talking about their coverage of this issue. So we're going to do that. Let me pop up the other screen here. Share system audio to make sure that we get the audio feed in place. Okay, here we go. This is Newport Richey cops making Anne Frank Holocaust jokes and laughing about it.
They just put this up.
Yeah, that's silly. You can smell it.
I'm not going to disturb anything. I just want to move this.
And it's tacky, but
That's Tuesday.
Yeah, you can see where.
Yeah, where they put the other molding in and stuff.
you can see the staircase right. That's crazy. Oh, that's like freaky crazy. It's not a fucking mess. It's like Anne Frank.
There it is.
So, it's like Anne Frank.
This is the living.
So they.
Can I take the drywall down? I have to know what's up there now.
That's what I'm saying. That I think it's in the same.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
They just put this up.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's silly.
Yep.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah. Let's be really clear here. Why are the police involved in a building inspector issue?
Which,
well, they went to court and they got what's called an inspection warrant, which only has the authority for the inspector to go into the house with the presence of the homeowner or resident of the home. She was not there. She was away from the home. She got a notification on her Ring camera that people were inside her house. And when she checked it, there they were, the Newport Richey police, without her being present, which is all the warrant apparently allowed. There they were inside the house without her present and making Holocaust and Anne Frank jokes. Let me back up for just a minute here and say that the other thing about this is she is in fact Jewish, and her family escaped the Holocaust by emigrating from Poland and Russia to the United States. Listen, if that is my family history, I might be thinking about building a secret room in my house.
Yeah.
So what the hell is going on here with the city of Newport Richey that they think that this kind of overreach? First of all, they got this to a judge and the judge signed off on it. I'm sure they didn't tell the judge, we're going to go 10 cops deep in the house and we're going to, she was named Officer of the Year in 2018. And look, this is where it gets really weird is in 2012, 2013, we had an office on Main Street and we had an angry client, mental health counseling office, come back to the office late at night while I was there alone and throw a brick through the front window of the front door. I actually thought somebody had fired a gun. It's how loud it was when the brick smashed the front window glass. And this is the officer that responded. And I feel really bad that here I am singling this person out because I got good police service from her. But that's kind of another point I want to make. If you're a white business owner in downtown Newport Richey, if you're a white business patron in downtown Newport Richey, you've probably had good interactions with the Newport Richey Police Department. So this might land on you differently. If you aren't woke to the idea that everybody doesn't experience a police presence like you do. The police were very good to me that night. They were very good to my mom, who was in her mid-70s when this happened and was very upset that this had happened. But our experience with the Newport Richey Police does not equal everybody else's. And we know that. And I don't understand how you can hear this and not think, well, gosh, maybe other people experience police differently than I do. Every African-American activist, every Native American activist, every leftist activist who has ever been physically abused or had their civil rights violated by police the person that was abusing them was probably wearing an American flag on their uniform, on their shoulder, on their chest, right? So kneeling for the flag has taken on this connotation of being anti-American. And I'm here to tell you that people see that flag differently than you do because of their experience, not because they're assholes. And I don't know what else to say about this. I'm really disappointed that the city of Newport Richey has let this happen to their police department. Has it always been this way and I just didn't know it?
Well, I mean, we do have a comment up here from our friend Rachel, essentially saying, for people of color, it's just been like this. Yeah. And I got to go with her on this. And I don't even know from personal experience. I just know as someone who has studied cops and criminal justice system. Yeah. Of course they are. It encourages them.
Yeah.
Always been that way. See, again, people of color know. I mean, honestly, hey, Jews know. I don't trust the police.
And obviously, this woman,
cops that are going to be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that this woman built something that she wasn't supposed to build without a permit. I get that. Yeah. You know what you do for that? A civil fine. Right. Basically, you find the information legally, and then you fine her in civil court, and she can either pay it or not pay it, and there'd be a lien or maybe some sort of sanction by the court. That's how that's done. You don't go into someone's house on this kind of a warrant with 10 or 12 cops and make Anne Frank jokes. What the fuck? That's not okay. And I am absolutely sure that because I'm putting this on the air, anytime I go to Newport Richey now, I'm going to hear about that I'm the problem. And that's just crazy to me. I don't know what Casey's saying. I think maybe they clearly expected to grow or something. That's maybe possible, but still, that requires a criminal search warrant. If you have probable cause to believe that there's a grow going on, that's a whole different kind of. This is an inspection warrant for a building and construction inspector. It's not okay what happened here to begin with. So, and I'm sure I'm going to hear that. Yeah. Guess what? Tarpon Springs does this. Port Richey does this. The Pasco County Sheriff's Office does this. I know. I just wanted to talk about this today. It hits me especially hard because I've had good interactions with the Newport Richey Police Department. I've had good interactions with the Chief of Police of Newport Richey Police Department. And I know that he has been very sick. He had a bout with cancer. He was off the job for quite a while. Kim Bogart is the Chief of Police of the city of Newport Richey. But I just don't know what's happened here. I feel like the police department is, out over its skis and he's lost control of them. And if that's the case, it's the city manager's job to make sure this doesn't happen again, that no more Nazi jokes get made by your police department. That's just responsible city governance, not restoring the hacienda, which is a great thing. But what's the point of that if everybody that lives in the city of Newport Richey doesn't have an equal share of the enjoyment of the city of Newport Richey? And and Rachel has been deeply involved in city politics for many years. She got so discouraged by it that she's moved away. She's gone. We've lost a person who was, on the president or the chair of the Art and Culture Committee. She was at every city council meeting, and it's just tragic to me that I'm not down there anymore. I'm not doing things in Newport Richey anymore. Guess why? I got told that my anti-cop values made it impossible for me to have a venue to do this show in the city of Newport Richey because someone in my comments said something unkind about police one day on my show. So I think that was a really poor thing for that business owner to do, to say to me, there might be repercussions if we let you do your show here. Well, think about that for a minute. You're saying that anybody who comes down there and sees that things are wrong and says so is going to get run out of town. So that's a thing that's happening. Anyway,
that's the thing that's happening. Anyway,
no, the situation is the situation's very new. I think the actual
know who it is necessarily. I don't believe.
Right. I think, as I understand it, the warrant service was sometime in April, May, and it was March. Okay, so it's a few months back now. I'm guessing because of the other link that I put up from the civil rights attorney that there's a lawsuit in progress. But so now we have, we have Marlo Jones who's suing the city, and his attorneys are Trayvon's family attorneys, and now we have another woman who, look, City of Newport Richey, you are going to get run broke if you keep treating people this way. And
well,
you kind of have it coming.
Yeah. When the kid touches the hot stove, at a certain point, it's on them. If they touch it again, if they keep touching it.
Yeah. So that's
learn eventually.
Yeah, this is akin to, as Cesar says, this is akin to the immigration issue. No such thing as illegal. It's a civil infraction, right? It's jaywalking. Being here illegally is a jaywalking thing. It shouldn't be a thing where we lock people up and send them wherever they came from. But here we are. Well, here we are.
I think we've said probably about as much as we can say on this issue. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, but it's completely expected because the institution is thoroughly corrupt.
Yeah. Well, what I hope you'll do about it, what can you do about it, right? If you live in the city of Newport Richey, you show up at a city council meeting and you bring this up because I'm sure that lots of people don't know about this. This is a thing that Creative Loafing put out, and it's funny to me that that's often thought of as a bar gig newspaper. They do a lot of coverage of food and culture, and Newport Richey restaurants and bars are in Creative Loafing pretty regularly. If you're an advertiser with Creative Loafing, maybe you need to talk to the city of Newport Richey. And go to a city council meeting. They do vox pop at every city council meeting where you have 2 minutes to get up in front of the city council and tell them what you think about any issue you want.
Yep.
Once in a while, they'll shut you down because they don't like what you're saying. They're not allowed to do that, but they do it anyway. But go speak to the Newport Richey City Council. Get your courage to the sticking point, and go stand in front of them and tell them this is not okay. The police making Nazi jokes and Anne Frank jokes. It's not okay.
Yeah.
That's what you can do. You can share this show so other people will see it. I'll take the heat because I live here. That's the way that's going to go. I'm sure I'll get my tag checked anytime I go to Newport Richey now. It's not the first time. Yeah. Right. Well, they called all of us that protested loons. The crazies are going to come back out now. Well, go be crazy then. If that's if that's what they want to say, earn it. Go earn it. Go, don't yell and scream. You don't have to yell and scream. You don't get arrested or tased by the police. Stand up and say your 2 minutes that this is not okay. City Council meets on the first and third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. in the City Council Chamber, City Hall, 5919 Mint. It's right across from the little store I was talking about.
Right. And I want to talk about this right here, Viscommon. I used to go to meetings years ago. They listen, kind of, and that's it. So in this context, I think it's less about getting them to listen because evidently they don't care and they don't give a shit. What we need to do is we need to have so many people in Newport Richey showing up that they are afraid. Okay? They need to be afraid of their own people. They need to be afraid of the citizenry standing together and saying this is not okay and you need to do something about it because they're not going to listen. They're not going to have their minds changed. You got to give them incentive.
Not just carrot. We need some stick.
Need a lot of stick.
How much did they listen to the angry protesters 2 years ago?
Well, I think it's about how you use that anger and how you use that crowd. I think it's about coordinating people and coordinating a message.
Okay.
Yeah, if a large group of people stays focused and says, we're mad about this thing. We are mad about this thing. We demand some accountability for this thing. And, doesn't branch out into 50 other issues and stays on point. They literally have to do something. At a certain point, they have to budge. You can budge them, but it's going to take a lot of coordination. You got to get a lot of people out. And unfortunately, 7 p.m., that's a good time to get people out to City Council. City Council, the organizing that we've been doing in Florida for Change with all of our allies in Tampa and St. Pete, it's brutal, man. It's a bitch. It's in the morning. Working people aren't around to go to City Council or watch City Council on YouTube in the morning. 7 p.m., that's doable. Right.
Debbie Manns needs to be removed. She runs the City Council, not the people. Rachel, I will tell you, Rachel and I have never talked about this before. We both arrived at this conclusion independently of each other. Years of observation of this person in their job, and I will tell you, she's beloved by the business owners in the city and the outgoing mayor. They renewed her contract 2 years ago, with no problem at all. So they just instantly, renewed. they can fire her at any time. They can look for another city manager. They haven't done so. They like what she's doing, and that's a problem. Get Alpha up there and let us pick the worst of them and beat them badly.
CJ
Sometimes
here has his own consulting firm. So I'm just saying, if anyone here is thinking about running for office in New Port Richey, you want to beat the New Port Richey City Council members, here's the team.
You mean beat them in an election? I just want to make sure that we're.
I mean, CJ, if you want to chime in, man, I mean, you can tell us what you mean by beats.
Yeah, we also see if he wants me to send a link for the stream here, we can do that if he wants to jump on and talk to us. Rachel, this is interesting. Altman stated last meeting he is no longer going to have the weekly meetings with her about the city manager. The answer is yes.
The answer is
yeah. Meaning an election, beating them in an election. Let's make sure that we're clear on that.
Sure. Allegedly.
Yeah. But you know how much they love to have the rabble wandering around in the courthouse.
Of course.
A couple of years ago, they had to arrest one of the crazies from the anti drag queen story hour Christian contingent.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Well, nothing more terrifying in the community than drag queens reading to children. Yes.
My daughter, I stabbed an Altman with a pencil once. That's one of the very few times, I must say, in either of my kids' school careers that I ever had to go to school and be a dad.
So much for the tolerant left.
Kind of earned it. Yeah, I'm the pacifist. I don't, I didn't necessarily raise pacifists, but
I mean, zero complaints here. It's not a time for pacifism.
So if you live in the city limits of New Port Richey and you want to make a difference, you should go and speak at the city council meeting. I will tell you, you don't have to live in the city to speak, but I will tell you what they will do with you when you do speak is they'll instantly discount it as, well, he doesn't live in the city. How do I know this? Because I've spoken at city council meetings in New Port Richey before. We did make a difference on some issues, but it's because a whole lot of us showed up and were noisy and annoyed them. Frankly, they got tired of listening to Vox Pop because 40 of us showed up to speak. That's what makes a difference. And we need to ask that there's some consequences for this. And I feel like at this point, being 2 years out from the last time that someone in the police department was disciplined for having Nazi imagery in their feed. Now it's not about the police chief anymore, or an individual officer who makes an Anne Frank joke. Now it's about a systemic problem in the department, and the person
always was.
Yeah, and the person that is responsible for hiring the police chief is the city manager.
Yeah,
she's got to go, and that's only going to happen with enormous public pressure. Am I hopeful that will happen? No, but if anybody else wants to do this, what we hear, the third Thursday. I've got to scroll back up to look for the comment. But, first and third Tuesday of every month. There it is. We both put it up and took it down. At 7 p.m. City Council. I will go the third Tuesday of this month. I'll go to the New Port Richey City Council meeting. Write down what you want to say. Read it to yourself with the timer running so you know how long it is, because you go over 2 minutes, they're going to cut the mic off and tell you to get away from the podium. You do need to write down your name and address on a sheet to be allowed to speak at Vox Pop. So you need to be at the City Council chamber about 6:30 p.m. if you would like to speak to this issue. Let me go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and commit right now that I will be there at the next City Council meeting in the city of New Port Richey. I will be outside in front of City Hall at 6:15. And if you want to get brave and it even just come be a presence, and you don't have to get up and speak, although that's the most effective thing you can do. I'll be there at 6:15. I'll make sure that you know where the sign-up sheet is. Sam will be there. Let's make it a thing. Let's show up at the New Port Richey City Council meeting on the next meeting, which is, look at the calendar. That would be 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. This is a week from tomorrow, August 16th. Let's show up at the City Council meeting in New Port Richey and make some noise and let them know that it's not just it's not just Marlo, it's not just Rachel, it's not just these individual. Let's all show up and be loons. So let's show them what that looks like. Because they obviously think they mentioned that in their own internal messages to each other. So clearly, it's going to bother them if we show up and make a noise about this. And I think we'll probably get some media coverage. Yeah.
I think it's doable. We've got some great organizers right here in the chat. We've got Maya. We got Maya from BLM Pasco. Maya right here. Maya King Wilson, who is a wonderful, wonderful human being, does so much good work in the community. I'm just saying, like all the materials we need, we got everything we have.
Right. Grace is asking me in the comments there exactly what happened. I'm gonna pop the video back in, but just as a quick recap, for the second time in 2 years, New Port Richey police officers are making Nazi jokes. In this one, while they're serving what's apparently a bad warrant on someone's home for a zoning violation or a construction violation, they weren't serving a search warrant, and they managed to search a bunch of her stuff anyway. So we're going to show up at the next city council meeting. That's a week from tomorrow, and speak at Vox Pop and let them know how we feel about that, and tell them that we want some consequences. So what do you think the consequence should be, Sam?
I mean, I think somebody needs to lose their job, and I think that they definitely do need to think about a new chief of police. I think that's a systemic issue. Whatever you can do to try to take away from their budget, to reallocate those funds, and to make sure that there's some form of accountability. Because listen, body cams and sensitivity trainings, they're not cutting it. It's been long enough. There's been enough of those for all police forces around the country, and it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. And, people of color and queer folks in the community, they know that those things don't deter anything. At the time, they turn the body cam off, or they keep it on, and they just don't care. They don't care. It's not deterring any kind of violence. So we need to get the people out of the system. And then we need to have a serious talk about the system itself.
All right. So that's as mad as I want to be about the local stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we've got some big stuff in America to talk about.
Yeah. Dark Brandon seems to be getting some shit done.
Oh God, Dark Brandon. The funniest thing
they yelled, "Let's go, Brandon," long enough that he's getting shit done. So,
well, what's funny about the Dark Brandon meme is that it's been a thing that, lefties on Twitter have been doing for months now, and liberals and centrist types just found it recently, and they don't get that it's meant to be snarky, so they're just posting it unironically now. I saw Dark Brandon, it's Joe Biden's face on the poster for The Dark Knight. Some really ridiculous shit. It's very funny.
The Malarkey Terminated animated GIF is my favorite. That was kind of hilarious.
Exactly.
All right. So I think we probably would come from different places on this, but knowing very much in my heart that what happened over the weekend was not enough. It's progress, and I think it actually sets the table for much more to get done. Now we have an argument that if the
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Am I clear that bad things happen in that bill? Yeah, I sure am. It's the best bill they could get passed with a 50-50 Senate. That's not an easy thing for anybody to do. And so the argument for putting 2 or 3 more senators, Democrat senators in the Senate, and expanding our House margin, which I think is less likely now than the Senate. I think it's more likely that we add seats in the Senate than that we add seats in the House. But now we know what it will look like. We know what can get done if we expand those margins and we still control the White House. So I feel like it's a good start.
I do not disagree with you as much as I think you thought I was going to. I do have my issues with the bill as is. I do think that a lot more was given away than needed to be. I don't like the way that media was treating Senator Sanders as he was talking about some amendments to try to beef things up and get more of what was in Build Back Better into this bill. I don't like the way a lot of the other Democrats in the Senate were treating him. It's like, fuck you, shut up, let it happen. That being said, I'm not stupid. I've read the bill. There are still good things in this bill. It is still the most money that a country has ever spent trying to combat climate change. I have issues with some of the things given to appease Joe Manchin because it's going to do a lot of harm to the environment as we're trying to undo it. But I'd love to dig into it, talk about it, because we got a lot of details right here.
Well, yeah, one of the things that when I talk about expanding the margin, here's the thing. We wouldn't be talking about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema if we had a bigger margin in the Senate. Well, I want this carve out or I want that would have been irrelevant. It would have gotten done with or without their vote. So they are getting all of the attention for basically trying to shit can the good work of progressives here. So if we had a bigger margin, their votes would be less important. They wouldn't have the power to stop the whole thing in its tracks. And, what is she doing now? Who is she talking to today? Where did she go outside? Who is she talking to in the hallway? It wouldn't fucking matter if we had a bigger margin in the Senate, right? So that's our motivation to get more people out to the polls and put more Democrats in the Senate and the House in November, is we can actually expand that margin and make them irrelevant in the argument. I like that. I know the goal was a 50% reduction in 10 years. This is going to get us to a 40% reduction in greenhouse gases. That's pretty good. And again, it's a starting point, right? Much like the Build Back Better, that's over a 10-year period. So there's more room to do more things, as long as we don't lose our legislative momentum and get shoved back into a Republican control of the House or the Senate, which would stop things again. I just can't. It's crazy to me that with wildfires that we see are much bigger and worse and more numerous than ever before, with weather that's we're breaking all-time record temperatures in Tampa Bay. How shit's on fire, yo. We have to do these things. It's not an optional thing. It's not an optional thing. It has to get done. And the only, I finished reading a little while back a Bill Gates book about how to approach the climate emergency. He makes the point that there's innovation, right? And that's the part of this bill where we talk about that they're going to give big incentives to companies that make solar and do other things that are going to reduce greenhouse gases. But there's also a place for legislative action in here, that they can create rules that make it harder for you to be a big polluter or easier for you to reduce your carbon footprint as a giant company.
Right.
So I feel like this is a start. It's not where we want to end up, but it's absolutely getting something out the door. It was beginning to look to me like we weren't going to get any action before the November elections on anything at all.
Anything happened at all. It is absolutely amazing that anything happened at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But what it should be doing is electrifying you to get out and help your friends and neighbors register to vote. Make sure that people you're talking to that are independents understand that none of this would be happening if we didn't have some sort of lead there. If they can regulate clearly. I got nothing to add.
You would think.
Well,
hey man, I'm gonna pull a you, and I'd like to actually go over what is in this bill. I've got a write up from Florida for Change right over here.
Very nice.
So we've got our three main areas, and we have healthcare up first. It would allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, extend ACA. It's the Healthcare Act, so Obamacare, subsidies for 3 more years through 2025. The bill would cap insulin out-of-pocket costs for Medicare beneficiaries at $35
but only for Medicare
a month.
Right.
Only for Medicare. That is one of my nitpicks with the bill. However, it should be noted every single Republican in the Senate voted against that even. They voted against that. They did not want to make insulin more affordable.
So if you're going to complain about tax and spend liberals, if you're going to complain about how much the liberals spend and then block a measure that lowers insulin costs, where's your argument there? Wouldn't that lower the cost of taxpayers? I'm on Medicaid, right? My insulin will be paid for as long as I am on Medicaid, as long as I am considered a disabled person. Well, there's 2 million people on Medicaid that take insulin, so we would have saved all that money. But whatever, I guess. Republicans obviously don't mean what they say. Shockingly.
I mean, they never have.
Yeah.
But here's some really interesting parts of the bill. It would require pharmaceutical companies to offer rebates to Medicare if they raise the price of drugs faster than the rate of inflation for beneficiaries. And that's obviously right now, that's a big fucking deal. That affects people.
Yes.
So most of this is kind of just reiterating the general thesis, going through some of the nitty-gritty. We get to the next part of the bill, which is about taxes, which introduces a new corporate minimum tax of 15%, funded by IRS enforcement, and a new 1% excise tax on stock buybacks. There are carve-outs in the corporate minimum tax for certain manufacturers and private equity firms. This essentially means they'll be able to pay less. That is one of the things that we gave to Senator Kirsten Sinema. Kirsten, I should know this. You know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
This is all I got for her. Yeah.
The one-term senator from Arizona.
Right. So this is essentially how they're planning to pay for it. The problem, of course, with cinema and that carve out is, it takes away money that we needed to pay for all of these things, and we would have more things that we can offer in this bill if we
It
were
also
getting that money.
it's going to be 2023 before before the excise tax or before the stock buyback penalty tax is going to be implemented. That gives companies a year to do unlimited stock buybacks with no taxation penalty between now and then. So that's not great, right? But there is the argument that how is it going to be paid for? Well, it turns out that it will be paid for. It's a budget.
It turns out people aren't paying their fucking taxes.
Yeah,
we know this.
I
we
mean,
know
Republicans are screaming bloody murder, and I'm like, well, have you tried not cheating on your taxes?
Right now, look at this. Look at this number right here. By investing $80 billion in the IRS over a decade, we get $203 billion out of it.
Right.
That's how much people have been dodging their taxes.
Yeah.
Like, that's a steal. And that brings us to the final plank, which is kind of like the main thing I think is getting the most attention from this is the climate. This is, like I said, still, even as like a C+ bill, the most money a country has ever spent in trying to affect the combat climate change. It's clean energy tax credits, environmental justice grants, drought resilience funding. They are claiming that it would cut climate pollution by about 40%. Now, that decreases compared to 2005 levels when emissions were actually peaking. So we're probably on track to cut 20% without this bill. It's a little unclear how much we will cut, but it looks good for us. A lot of money is going to tax credits and rebates for renewable technologies, solar panels, wind turbines, heat pumps, energy efficient buildings and windows, electric vehicles, incentives for companies to manufacture more of that tech in the U.S., energy efficiency at industrial sites that can lower the sector's hefty carbon footprint, dedicating funds to forest and coastal restoration. It sets the first methane fee that penalizes fossil fuel companies for excess emissions of the especially powerful climate pollutant. Another substantial part of the funding helps disadvantaged communities with monitoring and cleaning up pollution and builds up their resilience to climate impacts.
So that says to
There's
me,
a lot of shit in here.
Yeah, the Tarpon Springs Democratic Club has been having meetings for about 2 years now about ocean rise mitigation. This seems to me like the kind of bill that will provide the funding, which of course Gus Bilirakis will immediately take credit for. Even though he voted against all this, he'll be handing out checks, and that's something we're going to see as local representatives are going to be handing out checks and taking credit for this, even though they did everything they could to stand in the way of this ever happening. But I'm encouraged by that. And the other thing, when we were talking about not the industrial incentives, but the manufacturing incentives for solar, for turbines, for heat pumps, there's a knock-on effect there. When the U.S. gets on board with something like this, we are still, a pretty influential player in the world, and those companies that are doing those things will be looking to export that technology to Mexico, to Canada, to other countries that are part of our economic circle. And, it will be getting other countries to get on board and do these things as well. So leadership in this, and I'm not saying we are a leader. I will say we have been a leader in other things. Leadership in this is going to lead other countries to joining us. And maybe we see a bigger than 20% reduction in net carbon by 2030. That's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not the best, but, putting out some of the fire is at least a pretty healthy start. And I really do feel like what I saw happen with the ACA is people that were screaming and yelling about how bad it would be for us were obviously people who had never struggled to get health care. Right. And once they saw their friends, they saw their communities benefiting from it. This is what happened in Kentucky and West Virginia, where they were very red, but they all figured out that the ACA was actually very helpful to them as communities, getting more people on Medicaid, getting more people to get health care. I think the same thing will happen here. I think when Joe Red Hat MAGA guy sees that he can get
I
half
heard the
off.
name.
Yeah, when he sees he can get half off of a new stove or refrigerator, because part of this is about appliances that do a better job of managing our energy consumption individually. When he sees that he's going to get a $300 rebate for a new washer dryer, maybe he will recognize that, this turns out to have been a good thing for me personally, instead of bitching about, having to flush the toilet 9 times. And now we know why Trump had to flush the damn toilet 9 times, because search warrants are, pretty hard to flush. maybe we'll see some people begin to come around on this when people in Tarpon Springs see the seawalls being built to keep them from being inundated by global warming, sea surface changes. They'll see this is good for them. And I think 2, 3, 5 years down the line, it's easier to get more climate legislation passed once we've gotten this, first kick done.
Sure. Well, hopefully. Now,
yeah.
I'd also like to talk about some of the things that we lost in order to get the votes, because I think it's worth talking about. And ideally, if we get some more senators in there, people like John Fetterman, then we can undo a little bit of the harm that this might have caused. So we're doing a little bit of a gamble here. We're giving Manchin and Sinema some things that we probably should not be giving them, in the hopes that maybe we can offset that harm later on. So the main thing that Manchin got out of this, among other things, is he wanted support from the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That is a gas fracking pipeline. It's been shot down several times in court. It'd be 300 miles through West Virginia, through indigenous lands, through the Appalachians, environmentally devastating. And essentially, this bill adds some provisions that clear permitting roadblocks for fossil fuel projects like that, makes it a lot easier, almost mandates that we have more offshore oil leases that are on sale. And unfortunately, the Biden administration has been selling more of those than they promised to. I got a little bit more info here from ProPublica. You can see that it's the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that's been shooting down this pipeline several times. And what the bill is going to, what the negotiations are going to be able to do is allow for it to be shifted to a different court that will probably let it pass. Now, that's going to be horrible for the community. It probably will generate money and jobs. It's going to devastate a lot of people's lives. That, ironically, the good things in this bill might then have to combat. And I'm glad that we will have that money to combat those things. But we should know the deal with the devil that we're making here.
It's interesting because, believe it or not, locally, we've had an issue like this where the Army Corps of Engineers has said for years and years and years, no, this is a bad idea, don't do it. But local government spends enough money and enough time grinding down the opposition that we end up with the road that goes out from Moon Lake out to 41. And also, we have another project in Hudson where the old Hudson Pits. I've completely lost the name of the area west of 19 in Hudson, where there was all the limestone mining. There's been a push for a long time to build houses out there and pop open that lake. It's now a freshwater lake to ocean water, and it would kill everything in it. And the Army Corps of Engineers for years has said, no, that's a no-go. You can't do that. And now we know that over the last 5 or 6 years, local county commissioners, state legislators, governors, 2 of them, have gone to the Army Corps and lobbied them to allow this to happen. Now, it's not clear whether the Army Corps is going to change now because the president that was allowing that to happen is out of office. But it can happen that you find a go-around with a different court and, may lose that fight. But so my question is it worse than coal mining? SunWest. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that, Sandy. Is it worse than coal mining? Right?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, taking down whole mountains. I feel like, I feel like what I'm sure Joe Manchin knows. I mean, he'd be an idiot not to know this. And I don't think he's an idiot. I think he's wrong-minded about some things, but he's also a Democrat in a very red state. Is that those jobs, those coal jobs are going away. So unless we find something else for people that work in coal mines to do, they're going to be just more jobless Appalachians. That's not great, right? So, so I can see there may be being a lesser of the two evils argument about this pipeline, but
it can also displace people and destroy the environment, and that's going to have long-term repercussions for people.
Right, but again, it's one of those things like
too. Fracking has its own unique environmental issues, the same as bringing down a mountain.
Right. Well, the argument about this place, SunWest up in Hudson, was that, well, it's already been a mine. So, what the fuck is, what could make that worse? So I'm wondering if it's the same kind of thing where the people that live there see this differently because they see it as a less harmful thing. But again, that doesn't consider native land rights. And we've just seen how that goes. Right now that we know they've made it legal to fire on protesters who are on native land protesting things like fracking pipelines. It's not the best outcome. But again, there's no guarantee that they win that fight in court. in another court, right? It could be that court also says, yeah, no, we're not letting you do that.
Might, but they'll probably let it slide. That's the negotiation that we made. It's unfortunate.
Right.
Who knows what that looked like behind closed doors? It's amazing it happened, but it does suck. It sucks.
So we lost some things. There were some things that were very important here that would be good. I will say I don't like to give Kirsten Sinema credit for anything, but the drought mitigation part of this was her idea. That was something she needed for Arizona because they are having real drought problems there. And
you don't have to hand it to her.
No, I mean
we just don't have to hand it to her. I guarantee you it would have. I guarantee you it would have shown up in the bill if she hadn't said it. She said it because politics.
It looked like like something she's
still the most evil, vile motherfucker in the Senate. It's fine.
I don't know about that. I can think of 2 or 3 more evil, vile senators. One of whom's from Florida for sure.
But that's like comedic evil. I'm talking about so evil that they are on our side, whatever that means, and they're fucking it up for us. They are doing more harm than anyone else.
All right. Well, I just think she won't be our problem for too much longer. I just have a feeling she's not going to survive a primary.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be nice, man.
That would be really cool.
Here, let me give some good news because we've been talking about this, and you have been saying for a while that we might see a bump, and we have been seeing a bump on 538. If people subscribe to 538, personally, I still do. Just because data doesn't always go the way we want it doesn't mean it's wrong. You know? So in the Senate, we've actually been looking much better for a couple weeks here. Republicans have a 41 in 100 win chance to take control of the Senate. We now have 59 in 100. We started at around 47, 48. We were not supposed to pick up the Senate. And it's a combination of, not just Roe v. Wade, not just these recent legislative wins, not just gas going down, but also the fact that, I think about this story I tell all the time. In 2011, I had so many friends that were coming up to me and saying, Barack Obama is polling horribly. All my friends hate him. He's going to lose. And I said, sure, I understand that there's issues. I had my issues. Who's going to beat him? And the issue that they're having in the Senate specifically right now is that there are garbage Republican candidates. There's bad candidates. They got Doc Oz,
J.D. Vance, Dr. Oz.
And it's adding up. It's starting to add up, and people are starting to notice that these are just bad people that are running. Now, in the House, so work with me here. We have a 20 in 100 chance to keep the House. It's gone up 12 points in the last couple weeks. It's shooting up. It is going very, very slow, but it's shooting up. We are looking a little bit better. Not in Florida. Everywhere else, though. So our chances of mitigating damage is going up significantly. We are starting to look better. If we can hold on to things, if we can pass a couple more bills that really impact people, if the president wants to cancel student debts in, say, I don't know, the second week of October before Republicans can fuck it up for him. These are things that we can do. And I think that we actually have a shot at keeping Congress. We could keep Congress. We could.
And just think, and again, I like to look at the remarkable things that we could get done, by keeping both now. I think the momentum would be formidable. It would be, we could do everything we wanted without worrying about them taking a giant shit on it. We could pass another assault weapons ban. We could, there's a lot of great things that
child tax credit. Tax credit.
That's something else that got removed from this that I would like to have seen done. But I think seeing that there are more opportunities coming between now and November to pile on more things here, I think that's pretty good. And Joe Biden, my third choice. I'm not sure how it would have gone. No, nobody can be sure how it would have gone if it was any other candidate. But the Joe Biden presidency looks better now than it did 90 days ago, for sure. And unfortunately, I think that's where most people who vote think about these things. They don't think about it in terms of, down ticket stuff. They vote on down ticket stuff, but that's not what gets them out the door. And I think it's much more likely that we see people recognize the difference between Joe Biden and whoever the fuck else they run. Because at CPAC this week, which is their mainstream huge thing.
Oh man,
There
get me
was a
started.
banner over the stage that said, "We are all domestic terrorists." I'm not making this up. They had a banner over the stage that said, "We are all domestic terrorists." And as Maya Angelou told us, when someone tells you who they are,
Right.
believe them. They said
Well,
horrifically fascistic
Look at
and
who
totalitarian
the
things.
keynote speaker was. It was Viktor
Viktor
Orban,
Orban.
the dictator of Hungary. And Hungary, as we've covered on the show a couple times, has had weird ties with Ron DeSantis, and a lot of the laws that have been passed here don't say gay cribs from their language. It's an explicitly Christian white nationalist country. It's a country where he's gone on record as essentially saying Hitler did nothing wrong. He's gone on record as saying that nations fall apart when
I was just thinking about my friends, the Black Clash, who have a song literally called "Hitler Did Nothing Wrong."
Yeah. Which, it sounds weird to say, hey, vote for them in Best of the Bay, Creative Loafing's Best of the Bay, but Black Clash, they're up for Best Local Band.
I mean, why wouldn't they be?
The song is facetious. It's not.
I know that. I'm not that old.
I'm not telling you. I'm
sarcasm
telling
and
people.
fun. Oh,
I am
okay.
telling people. Yeah.
I think he told me that when I interviewed him, I think he told me that he actually heard somebody say that one night at a bar. The guy was saying, and I'm like, man, that's just too crazy to believe. But now at CPAC, Viktor Orban told all of those conservative, people, we know that you want to be a white Christian nationalist, non-mixed race country, just like us. And they all went,
right. Yeah, they lost your shit.
Fuck those people.
What's funny is he kept on referring to Judeo-Christian values, but the main target, the main boogeyman of his speech was George Soros. And every single time that he would bring up George Soros, it would stop being Judeo-Christian values and just be Christian values. That's a dog whistle. And if you know what to look out for, it's George Soros is really just the new face of anti-Semitic conspiracies. He's a dog whistle.
Do you think that they just keep Judeo-Christian in the wording to lure in conservative Jews? Or do is that what's going on there?
I think that there's a strange fetishized sense of old primordial justice that Christians get out of referencing Judaism, that they don't actually want to be associated with Judaism. Yeah, they love the cruelty. They love the cruelty of an old Jewish vengeful God. They love that shit. They eat it up. They don't want to do anything else. They don't like us. They don't like it when we correct them on when they quote our values. Our values are not necessarily the same. And, it is an issue. Before we pop off, though, because I just saw we've been talking for an hour. We've already filled up an hour of time. I know. Crazy.
I love it when that happens.
We're talking about George Soros and George Soros being a front for anti-Semitic conspiracies. Well, okay. That makes it sound like he himself is the front. George Soros. He is the target of anti-Semitic conspiracies.
Right.
Recently, when Ron DeSantis took Andrew Warren, my duly elected twice state attorney in Hillsborough County, out of his seat, one of the main attacks that he used was saying that he was paid for by George Soros, which, again...
He really said that in the presser?
Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And Marco Rubio, just the other night, tweeted out that a bill of his got shot down in the Senate. And that was the main thing that he wanted to do, is he wanted to prevent George Soros state attorneys and prosecutors from staying in office. And of course, all of us called him out on it.
Right.
Listen, these are smart people. They do not need, again, we come back to the issues with the cops. These people don't need sensitivity training. They've read the books. They're lawyers. Right. They're very smart people. He's the senator from Florida. I know he knows Jew shit.
He also knows the complex and shitty relationship between, Cuban Spanish and the Inquisition, persecuting Jewish people. There's no question that Marco Rubio knows exactly what that dog whistle is.
Right. And he does not care. Doesn't care if his people don't care.
Yeah. Well, we don't get a shot at Rubio this time. No, we do get a shot at Rubio this time.
Yes,
and the answer there is Val Demings.
Who I will vote for. I will vote for her. I'm going to do it.
MCAB, most cops are bastards. I would like to remind people she was also a social worker before she was a police officer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? Okay. But I just want to say that Val Demings released a short video clip the other day on Twitter where it's just her sitting at a table talking to a small room of maybe 10 or 12 people, like round table style, about why she would be better as a senator for Florida than Marco Rubio. And it was so compelling. No flashing sirens and lights in the background. I was a cop doing cop things for cop many years. None of that. It was just her talking to people. And it was so good that I retweeted it and I tweeted back at Val Demings. I hope that her people are listening. Just run that. Right. Just run that 45 seconds of her at a table calmly expressing what the job means to her and what her being in that job would mean to most Floridians. And, I can't imagine that would be a bad
people's
thing.
needs. That's what I've been saying. And because, fuck, man, Marco Rubio has he has 2 ads now where it's just sheriffs from around the state going, well, we're cops and we don't like that lady cop. We don't like Val Demings. That's all it was ever going to boil down to. If she tried to be the cop candidate, all he has to do is find all of these horrible cops and say, no, I hate her.
Yep.
The cops hate her.
Bay Area locals, look, go watch the presser from Ron DeSantis if you can take that much anger. And look who's standing in the background. My sheriff, Chris Nacco from Pasco County, Grady Judd.
My sheriff,
so all of the county sheriffs are all behind this, this let's do away with state attorneys that are trying to be fair to people of color. By the way, I can't say who, but I have a friend who was she's a law professor at University of South Florida. And one of her papers was about the differences between attorneys like state attorneys like Andrew Warren and what they would call more traditional state attorneys. These woke liberal state attorneys are having better racial disparity outcomes than what we have ever seen through old traditional state attorneys. There is a huge difference, a measurable difference in the outcomes for people of color, both Latino and Black, and that's the 2 groups that they focused on. It was a huge longitudinal study, and Andrew Warren was part of the data collection set. Like, he participated in it, and that's why Ron DeSantis is after him. It really, it makes good headlines that it's about abortion, but what he can't have is this, not tough on crime people winning and actually changing lives for the better. That doesn't play well with the tough on crime Grady Judd bullshit set.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
FBI executes search warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, according to the former president.
Do we trust that guy?
Just hit CNN in the last 10 minutes.
I'm conflicted because Trump said it. So can it be true?
The story's breaking. There's literally no information other than apparently like this meltdown that he typed up himself. Yeah.
I wonder if that's about the missing boxes of documents or.
So here we go. So Heather is actually in one of the group chats that we're in with the wonderful local organizer, Heather saying, I'm on Klein, I love statement by Donald J. Trump. I'm going to try to get through this without puking because this is apparently the only source that we have that this is happening.
I love you, Heather.
These are dark times for our nation as my beautiful home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, he's got to let us know where it is.
Yes.
Is currently under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. Nothing this has ever happened to a president of the United States before. After working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate. It is prosecutorial. It's hard to use big words when you're doing like a Trump because I know he doesn't know these words.
Yes.
Prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run.
Yes, as we all know, the FBI is
especially based on recent polls, and who will likewise do anything to stop Republicans and conservatives in the upcoming midterm elections. Such an assault could only take place in broken third world countries. Sadly, America has now become one of those countries, corrupt at a level not seen before. They even broke into my safe. What is the difference between this and Watergate, where operatives broke into the Democrat National Committee? Here in reverse, Democrats broke into the home of the 45th president of the United States. The political persecution of President Donald J. Trump has been going on for years with the now fully debunked Russia scam. He writes it 3 times. Impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and so much more. It just never ends. It is political targeting. Wow.
Well, okay.
So
there's so much
There's no
going on
news
here.
talking about it yet.
Right. There's so much going on here. But today, Paul Manafort admitted he did give information to the Russians. So there was no Russian hoax. He admitted it out loud today. Paul Manafort, that he gave that information to Kalimnik, who then gave it to the Russian FSB. So, but no Russia hoax,
Yeah.
right? That's that's a thing. So yeah, thank you. Mishi has put up 3 warrants so far since you were talking, since you were reading. CNN and The Hill are both on this story as well. I think I want to go home and watch the news. I've been saying for a bit now, it's slow.
Man.
I know it's slow, but it appears things are coming around. I'm just really curious about what they were looking for.
Right. Like, who knows? I don't
Yeah.
see any like information. Let's see what Bloomberg says. CNN literally just said like, yeah, the things. Yep. Okay. Same thing. It's just
By
happening.
tomorrow, somebody will have.
And we only know it's happening again because this motherfucker.
Because Trump tweeted about it or whatever he did.
Motherfucker. He wrote an essay. He wrote a.
So what does he
short
do?
essay
Does he like fold up a paper airplane and throw it to somebody who has Twitter now? How does that?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm just like imagining that if he's there, like, are they rating as he's just sitting there, just like watching them before and just like, I'm writing a letter about you. I'm writing a mean letter about you. I'm gonna put it on the internet. Like, what's he doing?
That's awesome. I'm sure the guests are loving that too, huh?
Right? Yeah. God, man, I was ready to be like, okay, that was a good episode, and I just happened to see that Heather sent a message and just happened to actually look at it. I browsed past it a few times, and I kind of like went, wait a minute, what is that?
Right on. Well, I say it sound like an old man here, but it's Rachel Maddow night tonight, so I'm going to go get out of here, have some dinner, and watch the news. And I'm sure this will be an interesting evening. Yeah, it is. Monday nights. It's the only night she's on now.
Okay.
So I gotta get my my schooling on. I gotta get more woke because I'm not woke enough.
Man. Well, I mean, like none of us are. We're constantly in an uphill climb to information, man. We're just constantly trying to be better.
I saw a little meme the other day. I posted it on So Local, and it said, and I may get it, word for word wrong, but the gist was, it's okay to admit that before you may have been speaking from a less informed position than you are today. That's what woke is. It's finding out that there were things that you used to hold as truth that you got wrong because you didn't have a broad enough perspective. And as we get older, maybe we should be more woke to the reality of the world around us. And I can't believe people are using that as a negative now. Like, what's better, being anesthetized to sleep by IPAs and country music? You know what?
Right.
Come on, man.
I mean, like, it's not that the concept of woke is like something that they don't understand. Really, I mean, my theory is I think it's just because it's a term that comes from Black culture and they use it as a fucking boogeyman.
Oh, see, I hadn't thought about it that way.
It's just scary because it didn't come from white people.
Right.
That's it.
I agree. All right.
What's woke? Whoa, it's scary. It's new. It's different. You haven't heard it.
All right. Well, as I said, we put up Kelly's information. There is a link in the thread from Mishi. Thank you, Mishi, for that. To Kelly Smith, Realtor. Thank you very much, Kelly, for your support of the show. Thank you also to my Patreon support, our Patreon supporters. More to come, more sponsorship rolling our way because people are liking what we're doing. So we'll be talking about that as the weeks go on. If any of you are interested in supporting or advertising on the show, you can support us through Patreon. You can also call us and maybe have a sponsorship if you have a business or some sort of project that you would like us to promote. We're happy to do that. Have you on the show, talk about it, come to your house, wash your car, whatever it is you need from our show, we'll try and accommodate you. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. That's Sam Ronan from Florida for Change. That's Silaw.com that's the
Zaya. He is also one of our sponsors. I just want to do a shout out. He is an amazing personal injury attorney. So if you have been injured by anyone in any way, this is where you're going.
Let's get him on the show. Let's get him on the show.
I know. Hey, he wants to. He wants to.
I'm ready for it. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your support, your patronage, for playing along in the comments, for being here with us. We enjoy your company. I would love for us to be able to do this in person, but some of you are half a world away. And we'll do it again next week on Monday. And as we always say, what do we say, Sam, at the end of the show?
Sasquatch is real.
That's it.